how are you? Hope you're fine. This is the Shy Yeti Show.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Good luck, studio.
Oh, it's the Shy Life Podcast.
Oh, there's going to be some drama ahead.
All I wanted was a pie, and then I hatched out of an egg.
Okay, bring the mic over. He's ready to record.
I see your mental condition is improving.
Is it metaphorical? Is it deep? Is it deep?
Boy, he's not all that shy as right.
Blimey, Governor, it's the Shy Life Podcast.
Hello, Paul.
Quack, quack.
Excellent. 668.
668. Bonjour et bienvenue au podcast de Shy Life.
Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the Shy Life Podcast with me, Paul the Shy Yeti. How you doing? Oh, I'm all right. So what's this episode going to be about? Well, we've got two guests for you this episode, and one of them you've not heard before, unless you happen to have seen his YouTube videos, and the other is a podcaster in his own right and has been on this show many times. I won't tell you who the new guest is, but you'll hear him first. But our returning guest is Martin Holmes. Now, we're not discussing music this time. We're going to be grumbling instead. Yes, we've got a book full of subjects that are worthy of grumbling about. So we're going to tackle some of those subjects. So let's run the theme music. When we come back, we'll introduce you to our mystery guest first. Run that theme music.
Darling, it's the Shy Life Podcast.
Yes, but it's a positive thing, Paul. The highlights, the Shy Life.
You won't find a cast of characters like this everywhere.
I'll go anywhere for a potato.
Delicious.
Hello, captains. How are you?
You quite like a big bang, don't you, Paul?
Go Shy Yeti.
Oh, I hope he hasn't found out my secret. Do you think he has?
I love the Yeti. Yes, it's my favorite thing.
If you thought that was bad, just listen to this.
Yeah, I am strangely drawn to Yeti Uncle John's ankles as well.
I could eat more body weight in crisps every day.
Has anyone seen my hot sausage?
It's all green and easy. Yum, 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 yum.
Oh, I can't wait for it to begin.
It's the Shy Life Podcast. I like that. Yeah.
Look, mommy, I'm famous.
Marvellous, Paul. Hi there.
Stevie's staying here for the moment.
Okay. No problem.
He may ask you questions. So.
Okay, I'm ready.
Do you know about cat? Do you know cat language? We can get a translation.
No,
I don't know.
I'm better at dog.
Oh. Yeah, I don't know cat language. I just make it up, don't I? How would you like to be introduced on the show?
Up to you. I can be as Mateusz. I can be as Grizzly, whatever.
Yeah. Well, you should you should tell us about your YouTube site before we start. How long have you been doing it, and what does it involve?
So I'm doing a Polish channel on YouTube for over a year. I had on the beginning of the August, I have a first anniversary, and I'm making a movies about video games, board games, anime, some TV series. Lately, mostly about Power Rangers. And I also started my English channel like 2 months ago, and I'm translating Polish videos to English and like re-uploading them in English, but they are only 2 movies so far.
Well, it's good to have, because I can't remember. Do your Polish videos have subtitles, or for non-Polish speakers, or is that why you're doing them, translating them?
No,
YouTube?
they don't have any subtitles. That's why I created second channel, because I'm not good with making subtitles on YouTube. It's pretty complicated and it's hard to have a good timing. They creating automatically subtitles in Polish for me, but with my Lisp, they are not too accurate, and sometimes they don't have sense, so I can translate them.
Yeah. I've seen YouTube automatic subtitles on other people's videos, and sometimes it gets it very badly wrong.
Yeah.
But, it's best to do your own. So I suppose what should we talk about first? TV wise or film wise, you sort of mentioned Power Rangers, but what is that a favorite show, your favorite show of all time, or what is it that you enjoy watching?
It's like it was first TV series I was watching as a kid, which wasn't animated. It was with real people. There were superheroes, so I was just glued to TV every Saturday morning, and I was watching and imagining I'm one of them. For years I was watching every new series that was out in Polish channels, and it's a bit of nostalgic. Somehow it's my favorite show, and the first season of them was released in the year I was born, so some connection.
Yeah. How many? Because some of those shows that sort of come over, like maybe they might have shown some episodes in the UK, but I wouldn't be sure whether they showed every single episode. Do you know how many episodes they made? Did they make a lot, or did they only make a few that get repeated a lot? Or
now it's hard to say. I have to check, but I know the first 15 seasons have around 30 to 50 episodes per season. Latest have around 20 to 25 episodes. So now it's I guess over 1,000. Yeah, because this year is a 30th anniversary of it, and the 30th season is supposed to be the last in the current universum, and they want to reboot it and make it more adulty series for older audience, as most of the fans is now around 30-40 years old.
What's the original language? The Japanese originally, or
no? I mean yes, but no, because Power Rangers is American series, but it's based on a Japanese Super Sentai.
That's why
and it's like the American Power Rangers are created like they have American actors playing the Power Rangers.
Okay, sure.
But the footage of actors without transformation is original American footages. But the Power Rangers fights, Megazords, other robots, monsters fights are mostly Japanese footage.
Yeah, I thought it was something a bit mixed like that, which makes it quite confusing. Because I'm sure there are cartoon series that we saw when I was a kid, like Battle of the Planets, and a number of shows that were made from like Japanese cartoon series, but then had other bits inserted, and it was that was just cartoon, let alone actual sort of live action. But it's I've got a sort of brain that if I started to look into it, I would never come out again, probably, because I like facts and figures. I like facts and figures about shows I don't even know anything about, and that's where I start to kind of get pulled into the warp of being interested. So presumably, the cast does the cast has changed a lot over the years if it's gone on for that long? Do characters come and go, or? But I have so many questions.
Yeah, so cast was changed like every season or two. It was like the first 5 seasons from 90s was strictly connected to each other. It was like Zordon era with first Zordon was the first mentor for Rangers. He originated the first team. Then they switched the costumes, but there was still the same cast. Then another costumes, and in fourth season they changed the cast, but it was still like in the one line of the plot. And in space season, which is supposed to be the last one ever, because previous season was pretty weak and reception was very bad. Fandom was very angry about it. So in space still had cast connections to the original Rangers, but it was like the last season strictly connected to each others. Rest is pretty loosely connected, and mostly it's like you get one or two episodes when previous team comes to help the current team, but sometimes you don't even sure if it's happening in the same world, the same ages, the same universe. So it's pretty messy universe now.
Yeah, it's obviously a much bigger. It's such a big franchise, much more than I realized. But I mean, I remember my brother's 8 years younger than me. I don't know whether he was into Power Rangers. My brother was born in '82, and I wonder whether he watched it when did its sort of start in the early '90s, was it?
Yeah, it started in '93, so it might be possible.
Yeah, he could have done. But I do remember sort of younger, like visiting a friend whose child was about 5, say, in the mid '90s, and he was very into it because he had a very strong accent, which you won't know, but it just sounded really weird when he said "Go Go Power Rangers" in his accent, because it didn't sound very heroic. It sounded like a farmer saying "Go Go Power Rangers."
Okay.
But other than that, I guess I was at university by then, so I was sort of aware of the characters, but I certainly didn't realise that there was so much to it. But I like that sort of thing because I like when there's lots of things to explore. I can never quite understand when people just like shows that are perhaps 6 episodes long and they dedicate their life to this show, and you think, there's so little to watch. Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, I felt like that about Star Wars back in the day, because for years, all there was of Star Wars was 3 movies. And I was a Doctor Who fan where there was loads of stuff, loads of episodes. And I thought, well, Star Wars is all very well, but you can get bored of it quite quickly with only 3 films. And of course, eventually things started to. Now, lots of things, but I never quite understand how you could dedicate yourself to just a couple of films. Or, you know, when I was the age when all my friends were very interested, I was. Doctor Who's got far. There's more episodes of Doctor Who. I should watch that instead. I don't think I was very impressed by special effects when I was little. I think a lot of people like Star Wars because of like special effects, and I was like, I don't really notice that. Oh, what I liked was cliffhangers, and Doctor Who always had cliffhangers at the end of the episodes certainly in the old series. I think that was one of the things that dragged me in, was like, I've got to wait till next time.
Well, Star Wars is a bit specific fandom, because yes, there was only 3 movies, but there was a lot of books extending the universe. So they are pretty unique on that matter, because they even started like universes where they are extended by books. Because before Star Wars, I'm not sure if there was anything that would have books extending their universe.
Well, Doctor Who had novels but they only had novels of existing stories, because sometimes the stories going as they went back to the 60s, the BBC hadn't kept all the episodes, so that they were represented by novels of the missing stories, and you could at one stage buy every single Doctor Who story up from 1963 to 1989 as a novel. But it sounds like Star Wars and Star Trek probably got there before Doctor Who as far as writing unique Doctor Who novels, most unique novels on the franchises, because the thing that kept Doctor Who going between 1989 and, well, it did come back briefly in 96, and then it took until 2004 to come back. There was a lot of novels written in that period, and there was still a Doctor Who magazine produced every month, and then eventually there were audio dramas, but it was all happening probably below the radar of the general public. The fans knew about it, but if you spoke to somebody on the street who didn't know about Doctor Who, they'd just say, well, that finished years ago. But it never totally stopped, and I guess Star Wars never totally stopped, and Star Trek never totally stopped, and probably lots of other series. But and then of course you get to the stage where the fans of shows like that become old enough, or maybe get into the business, and then can take sort of. I mean, all the people involved in Doctor Who these days, or certainly the senior people, are people who were big fans of the show and just became well-known TV producers or writers or actors. I mean, it's a rare thing that David Tennant, who was like the second Doctor, after it came back, he's a massive Doctor Who fan. So it's kind of weird. He was sort of known as a fan in fan circles, and then suddenly he's playing. There are actually I think quite a few, at least one or two of the Doctors who have been the Doctor in the 21st century were people who liked Doctor Who. So it's kind of, it's also pretty cool to get to finally play the character that you perhaps were playing when you were at school or whatever. So other than Power Rangers, what other franchises are you really into? I know you also, forgive me if I get the wrong name, but the Funko doll, well, not
Funko Pops. I have them a lot. I always was thinking they are pretty ugly because of their big heads and pretty squarish heads. But there was one Funko I saw in a shop, and I thought, okay, if I ever buy one, it was gonna be my first. And I bought that one. It was pretty messy because I ordered it from Amazon, as it was pretty expensive at that time in Polish shops. So I took it from Amazon, and I received Spider-Man instead, when I'm not a big fan of Spider-Man. So I tried to get a refund and resend them this Funko, but they said, okay, but the seller is someone from outside. The seller changed the price to higher price, and I should buy now for higher price. So it was pointless, so I just ordered from Polish shop. But now I have around 70 of them and more to come.
Yeah. Do you keep them in their boxes, or do you take them out? I can't remember from your videos.
No, they are outside. Most of them is outside. At the beginning, I was keeping them inside. I just opened it once, took off, watched, touched. Okay. I put it back. No one gonna know I ever take them off. But now they are pretty much displayed on my shelves.
That's the trouble. You buy things and you're just buying them and they're in a box, and you can't really get to enjoy. I know that's, some people do it because it's kind of an investment, but you can't enjoy them in the same way as if it's just nice to have them displayed. And the poor little Funko Pops, they're inside the box. They can't breathe properly. They get hot. You have to feed them each day, of course.
They get in the dust. That's their food.
Yeah, I have. I told you offline before. I have Lucille Ball from I Love Lucy from the 1950s because I can't remember what. Well, I was doing a review of some episodes of I Love Lucy for a friend's podcast, and I thought it looked quite cool how because some of the dolls look less like they're the people they're supposed to be than others. Some look very, and some it's like, or perhaps they're not really that famous. If you didn't know, like, I don't know, if they did Funko Pops of Kiss, say, if you didn't know the band Kiss, you might not recognise who these people were, or even I was telling you, I was considering buying one of Duran Duran. If you weren't familiar with the people from Duran Duran from the 80s, you'd probably be, well, who's that and who's that? I think I have Michael Myers. He might still be in his box, but that's because he's dangerous and can't be let out because he might go around killing my teddy bears and things. My poor teddy bears probably they've probably got a life of their own, which I don't know about, where this horrible man is stalking them at night. But
yeah, it's better keep him in jail.
Yeah, it's definitely. Lucille Ball is safe. I don't think she does that sort of thing. I think she just does funny things. But yeah, it's one of those things where I could see myself collecting more and more. If I had the space, or if I lived by myself, I probably would have a lot more. I used to be really into, I still am into Converse trainers, but I went through a stage of visiting America quite a lot. Not that you can't get them over here, but every time I went to America, I came back with pairs. And when I was doing my poetry, like open mic, or I did my own shows, I'd be trying to find interesting Converse that I could. Trouble is, I have quite big feet, and the bigger the feet, the less variety of interesting Converse there are. It seems to be like, if you have size 12 or 13 feet, they just think, oh well, you won't want exciting shoes. You'll just want very boring colours, and which is not fair, really, because people with big feet like to have fun shoes, don't they, Dales? Dales isn't sure. Dales doesn't have big feet, but yeah, they're not there. They're cool things to have, and they keep. I'm sure they've got Doctor Who ones as well. It's a slippery slope though once you start buying them.
Yeah, I still have boxes to all of my Funko, because someday maybe I'm gonna need to sell them.
Yeah.
With box they still have higher value than without.
Yeah, if I remember rightly, those boxes kind of fold up, don't they? So you can keep the boxes and put them back in there if you ever had to, I suppose.
Yeah, but you have still a plastic case inside to put the Funko. So I keep them as a background for Funko.
Yeah.
If I don't have a manga on the shelf, there is a Funko box.
Yeah. So other than what we've discussed, what other franchises? I know you like anime. Yeah. Tell me a bit about your favourites and on that area.
My favorites. It was one anime I was watching as a kid in a Polish station. It was fun times because it was like a German channel in Poland from German. It was in Polish. But most of anime aired on this channel was first imported from Japan to America. Then from America, they were censored in America by French people, censored again by Frenches, and then land in Poland, totally cut off, changed names, like Battle of the Planet. I was watching it a bit later, but our version was much more smaller than original Battle of the Planet, which still was. I'm not sure. It have maybe 100 episodes, and Japanese had few hundreds of episodes.
Yeah.
But my favorite anime from that time was called Magic Knight Rayard. It was about three girls from Tokyo schools. They didn't know each other, and they landed in mystical world where they had to rescue the princess. Pretty easy plot, but I fell in love.
Yeah, I don't think I've heard of that one. I guess do you count Studio Ghibli films as being anime, or is that a different subsection? I know you said that that's not really your area, but I wasn't. When you said to me, did I like anime? I wasn't 100% sure what I'd seen counted as anime or what covered that sort of area.
They are anime, and pretty much classic. So I would burn on stake if someone gonna know that I didn't watch any of them. But I want to catch up. So
yeah, there's still time.
I'm pretty safe, I guess. Yeah. Maybe.
There's still time. Yeah.
Each hand for me.
Yeah. I enjoy them. I enjoy them. I go back to one or two of them, but yeah, I don't watch as much animation as perhaps I used to, and even sort of American animation like The Simpsons or Family Guy or South Park. Yeah, Futurama. Is that your favourite? Deers' favourite is Futurama. Apparently, he looked at me. And said that. Yeah, I used to like them. I even though I said earlier that I like shows with lots of episodes, I think I guess because I do my own things as well. There's only so many hours in the day. It's difficult to.
Yeah.
There's so many episodes of The Simpsons, and I'm sure there are lots of really good ones I've never seen. But I'm always. I guess I feel like I've seen enough episodes to know I like it, but I don't necessarily need to see any more at this moment, because I do get involved with shows that have lots of episodes. You can only choose one or two of them at a time.
Yeah, exactly. I was watching Family Guy for years, and at some point I just stopped and never back down to them.
Yeah. I went to see the South Park movie about 3 times at the cinema when that was new. Yeah, I really liked South Park, and I liked Family Guy. Is it Family Guy that got axed after 3 or 4 seasons? I liked it when it was struggling at the start, and then, and I think I felt like they either had to do more or they just thought, well, we're going to get axed probably. We'll just do whatever we like. And then when they came back and they were safe, now they're kind of, yeah, they don't feel that they're pressured to. They know they're safe now. It's not quite the same, but yeah, it's. I didn't even realise that Futurama had come back again. There's a few shows like Rick and Morty. Is that the right name?
Yeah, Rick and Morty.
Yeah, I've seen the odd season of that, and there was a stage where I think a friend of mine had shown me quite a lot of episodes on streaming, but for some reason the most recent series wasn't available on streaming at that stage, so I bought the DVD of it and brought it round to show him. So I watched the whole of that season. Yeah, I do enjoy it. I don't watch as much comedy as I used to as well, which might explain it, because that's the connection with South Park and Simpsons, and
yeah,
I don't know why. I can't explain it. I used to be so keen on comedy when I was a teenager. When I was at school, those would be the TV shows that we would come back, like you'd watch on a Friday, and on Monday you'd come back to school and you'd talk with your friends. Oh, wasn't that really good? Wasn't, because of course no mobile phones when I was at school, so you didn't get to talk to your friends in between sometimes. But I don't know. My only theory is, I know a lot of people, like in the pandemic when we were locked down and all that sort of thing, a lot of people watched comedy shows because they wanted to be cheered up, and I don't know that I tended to watch maybe things that were drama with humorous bits in, but I wasn't quite in the mood for complete funny, because that was too much escapist, perhaps. I don't know. That was too much of a swing of different moods, I suppose. And also, a lot of things that happen in my podcast are very silly. So perhaps after I've done my podcast, I've had enough silly, and I need to watch something serious or scary, or And obviously, Dealey gets to choose what's on TV, don't you, Joes? When you're not asleep. So, yeah, are there any other film series or TV series that you're very keen on, that or have we covered the main really big ones?
There was one more anime from this channel when I was a kid. It's called Saint Seiya. I believe it was translated as Knights of Zodiac, something like that. It wasn't big outside of Japan, but pretty much people know that. And lately, a Polish creator made a movie, live action movie. And when I saw first trailer, I was sure it's gonna be train wreck. I didn't want to watch it, and of course it was a train wreck. And the original mangaka that created a manga was so disappointed. He was furious about that movie. And this movie had pretty famous names like Sean Bean. So it was supposed to be a big premiere, but well, it has nothing to do with original series except of the name, like Mortal Kombat in 90s. But first Mortal Kombat was at least a good movie. This was just train wreck.
Yeah, sometimes that happens. There's a not the cartoon Avengers of now, but there was a show in the 60s called The Avengers, which was a spy show with a detective and a sidekick, and it was pretty big in America and over here in the 60s. And in the 90s they tried to make a version of it, and they just couldn't get that started. It's difficult to recreate because it was a 60s show and it looked very 60s in the best possible way. And they had Ralph Fiennes playing the main character of John Steed, and it's just no amount of good acting could just get that. Uma Thurman played Mrs. Peel, who was the sidekick, and big names, but they just couldn't recreate the rapport that the team had from the original show. And then there was a soap opera, which I don't know if you'll have heard of, from America, which I'd never heard of over here, but again, it was from the 60s, called Dark Shadows, and it was a supernatural soap opera. And it ran for about 5 years with about 1,200 episodes. And I didn't know anything about it. But then slowly, as it got into the 90s, I started hearing about it and seeing books at comic marts. I used to go to sort of things like that in conventions, and eventually it was shown on sort of cable channel. And Tim Burton, is that the right name? The director, he made a big movie version of it in.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah,
with John Depp.
That's right. Yeah, and it was nothing like the show. It was like, why are you even bothering? You're just using the name. And yes, Johnny Depp played the vampire Barnabas, but how can you? I mean, this was a show where yes, the main character was a vampire, and he wasn't necessarily a bad vampire. He wanted to be good, but there were lots of other. Obviously, in a soap opera going on for years, you can have so many different plot lines, so many different characters, and yet you're trying to put it all down into one movie. And then they made it quite comedic as well, and it's one of those films that Dark Shadows fans, and I'm a fan, but I don't feel like I'm as big a fan of anything when I see other fans these days. I used to think I was a Doctor Who fan, and I am, but I feel there's a lot I don't know now, particularly because of all the new episodes, and I feel like I'm interested in so many different things that it's difficult to be a really big fan of one thing these days. And I know that the people who are the really big fans of Dark Shadows, where they won't even let people discuss the movie in the forums, because it's difficult to sometimes they take the names, but then they do their own thing. It seems pointless, really. But, how are you?
I'm tickety boo.
Good. Well, I thought I would call you back for a little bit more of a grumble, really, because
I'm the man. If you want grumbling, who do I know is a grumpy old man? Oh, I don't know, but he's quite old, isn't he? We'll have him. Yeah.
Well, remember, not so long ago, my mum found a book in the phone box, in her bookstore in the phone box, 11,002 things to be miserable about.
We only did the first page.
Well, I skipped some of them because some of them were a bit rude, but I'm just doing ones that I think we'll be happy to talk about. But but I thought we'd continue.
Grumpy, happy grumpy. Yes.
Yeah.
It's like a couple of dwarves.
I thought you probably have experienced this. Although when this book, when was this?
Never
book?
make assumptions. I'll get great grumpy about that. People make it.
Well, this was published in 2009, so it has a very. It feels that this book feels older than it is, but it's not as old as it feels. What about computer crashes? Have you had computer crashes? I imagine they make you very cross.
I worry about my computer because I'm starting to get notifications that some of the software is too old and it's running on too old an opera. Because basically my thing about my computer is if it works, don't mess with it. Don't upgrade it. If it's work, because what I've found is in the past when I've done upgrades, the stuff that used to work no longer works. And when you're trying to do things like radio shows, when you do editing and you're using particular software, you don't want to not be able to suddenly not be able to use that software. So that kind of thing bothers me more. Funnily enough, since I've living my life of leisure, actual computer crashes don't bother me as much. Although the problem with that is when you are an artist. I use the word very, very reservedly. But when you consider yourself someone who works with artistic software, shall we say, artwork software, what can happen is you get so engrossed in what you're doing, you forget to save. And so if the software does crash, which it can do, because I am also, the other thing is this computer is very old now, so it's running out of hard drive space, especially as audio stuff takes up a lot of a hard drive space. So, but when you've been working on something for an hour and you suddenly realize you didn't hit save and it starts acting in a peculiar way and you realize you've lost an hour's work, that to me was, when I was working professionally, that was always the thing. Remember to hit save as often as you could. And it would always still crash on the one day you didn't do that. So it's more a question of getting into the habit of saving your files. I would say that to anybody. Save your files as you go, because... And I mean, we used to have things like autosave, but they used to be a pain because they would stop your computer running for 2 minutes. They did it.
I have a lot of backup drives. We have all the... thing is... Nick digitized Almost Hutton Park for me on all our videos, but I haven't got one drive. I haven't got one copy of that. I've got 3 or 4 because it's. I mean, and I haven't thrown away the camcorder. My mum sort of said a lot of the camcorder tapes have lived at my parents' house for 30 years or getting on that way. My mum's like, "Oh, so can we get rid of those?" And I said, "Well, if you had your wedding photo scanned, say, but the photos were still okay, are you ready to throw the originals away?" Because to me, it's the same thing. One drive which has got, I don't know, thousands of videotapes worth of stuff on. That's one thing that could be stolen, broken, explode. Yes. Whereas at the very least, if we've still got the tape, it's unlikely that all so many thousand tapes are going to die at the same time.
Well, I don't want to incentivize villainy, I really don't. But I have to actually say that if this computer dies, so does my radio show, because I wouldn't be able to build it without this setup. It would take me too long to, you know what I mean? So if someone really wants to bring an end to my narrowcasting career, they've got an incentive there. But everything depends on that one kit. It is all eggs in one basket thing, and that's a very stupid thing to do. But the problem is that kit is so expensive, and I'm not in a position to replace it. So.
I really need to go back and check older drives that are because I think the last time I looked at a pen drive and I don't know if the stuff on that was the only copy, because knowing I've always done multiple copies of things, but it's one of those things when you put it in, it goes this disc needs to be reformatted, and I'm thinking, but that's I think
the fear actually with old photographs now, especially because I'm terrible for not printing them. I do sometimes post them online, but not printing them, and I know that we have stuff that I backed up to DVD or CD, and I know that those are probably rotting, and those photographs may now be lost, and that I think disc rot actually is something that makes me more grumpy than crashing.
I've never seen that. I've never seen disc rot in action, but I
live in fear of it, Paul. It's a bit like my mouldy video cassettes.
I often on Facebook, if it kind of does that thing where it says, it says you've got some pictures from 10 years ago that and I often resave the photos, at least onto my phone, because I couldn't tell you now where where the originals they're probably not, the ones you're saving off Facebook probably not as good quality as the original ones, but then I'm not sure where the originals are. The original, not with digital photos anyway.
Well, I think it's interesting as well. I mean, we live in times when people are sort of switching to streaming and digital backups for everything, and I suspect we're going to actually get to a point at some point where there'll be this massive historical gap, because those systems will fail somehow and people won't have. I mean, it's the whole thing about people don't want physical media. I love my physical media. I love the fact I can go and get a CD off the shelf or a DVD off the shelf and watch it or listen to it, and have a CD player and have a DVD player or a Blu-ray player to do that with. I don't know, maybe some people think that's old-fashioned, and it probably is old-fashioned, and it does take up space, but it does have advantages that other systems don't have. But equally, the downside of that is this fear of disc rot, which might mean that I've got an awful lot of coasters in very nice boxes. But when you've got something like a DVD company going bust, a year ago, had I put a disc of, say, Crown Court in, it's still in its cellophane, and I opened up that box and put it into play, and this disc is the disc error, I could have rung up and got a replacement. That now is more difficult. So then it becomes, how do you source replacement discs? But that is a whole different can of worms.
I mean, the people not, because I always wonder, like, how is, like, say, I mean, it's not the worst. I mean, I'm not a massive fan, say, of Mariah Carey, but I don't mind her Christmas song. I hate Christmas songs, and that's one I can stand over, if I have to. But how is it doing so well every year? Because to me, I'm thinking, well, you bought it last year. But the thing is, perhaps people didn't buy it; they were streaming it. So next year they want to listen to it again. So they don't go back,
download and delete on the assumption that something will be there again. And this is the weird thing: when you're on a budget, you can't quite understand the profligacy of people just buying the same thing again, or
streaming it so that it gets back in the chart. Because if I say I wanted Merry Christmas by Slade, I'd be like, I'd buy it, say, in 2010, and then I'd still have it.
So again, it's that best Christmas album in the world ever. My shelf 15 years ago. Yes, I know.
So it wouldn't affect the charts if I listened to that CD every Christmas. It's unlikely, but if I because I bought that CD back in 2010, I've listened to it every year. That's not going to affect the charts. But
it also has the advantage or disadvantage, depending on your point of view, that those CDs have the tracks on from people who are now shall we say, considered less
yeah,
listenable to.
But I mean, I think that's why some of these songs are coming back every year, is that they're being streamed by people who don't own them. That's the only way.
But I mean, it's interesting to me that you look at that. For example, you know about the awful person who, the television character who, his program was that Fix with Sontarans was on it. Now. You now know that the only way you're ever going to see the original of that is if you happen to have the episode on a disc that was released before the scandal broke. You see what I mean? And now you'll never see that again. And I just think from a cultural history point of view, that's a bit strange. But
it's like that with Top of the Pops.
You might not want to see these things because of those same reasons. So that's perfectly fair enough. And I can understand why they don't want to release
but
it.
Even when there hasn't been a scandal, like on Top of the Pops, some presenters not wanting to appear, choosing not to, because like Mike Smith didn't allow his stuff. I know he's gone now, but his estate doesn't allow. And it's a shame because Mike Smith was he was a good presenter, and B, I wasn't really watching it from him, even though he was affable. You're watching Top of the Pops for the music, really. It's a shame that he or his estate have a say on that. And also, it's a shame because he is known as a presenter, and just it's a shame that he and the BBC fell out, and now we can't see the show or him on those shows. But,
and that makes you grumpy. Is that in your book?
That makes me definitely top of the Pops getting edited.
I do get a bit grumpy about physical media and not being able to get it. I get slightly more grumpy now about the fact that prices are skyrocketing for certain things because they're suddenly more rare, and the fact that nobody else is ever likely to step in and make those things available again, and things like that do annoy me. I tell you what's been making me, I find it weird because there's a lot of collectors online who are going on about, and they seem to be mopping up a lot of the network releases. But it's the ones who say, "Oh, just picked up this, paid this for it. Is it any good?" And you think, why are you buying it? If you can't, you don't just. I don't know. They're not trading cards. They're like, I've done enough podcasts. You've done enough podcasts where I can tell you that certain shows are bloody awful, but people seem to want them because they have that particular brand on them, and they think I don't know whether it's just because they think they'll be able to sell them on at a massive profit in about a year's time. It just strikes me as a little bit of a weird subset of people. I mean, there are shows that I wish I'd bought now and didn't, and I go and look at them and they're either out of print or unavailable, or someone wants about 800 quid for them.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a show that a friend said, "Oh, can you get me that for my birthday?" And I looked and I said, "It's actually out of print, but I'm not sure if I'm ever going to watch my copy again. So if you don't mind a second-hand copy, I could give you mine." But there's also one or two which weren't that expensive at the time, that I think I've doubled up on by mistake because I forgot to delete them from my birthday wish list, and then I just the other day I was like, "Oh, I have 2 copies of that series." And I'm
not saying that Network particularly were, their business model wasn't great, but wasn't there a sale they did where they accidentally sent 2 copies of everything to everybody?
Yeah, that rings a bell actually. And I've got a few things like Crown Court. I can't. It was one of those things that I had on my wish list. And when Toby and Lisa asked me what I wanted, I last birthday I asked for one set, which I haven't opened yet. But at the time I thought, well, if I like it, then I can get more. But now that's not likely to happen. So at least I've got one. But I hope I don't like it too much. Otherwise I'll be sad.
Well, the weird thing of certainly watching these collector websites is that it's not the fact that I can quite happily state, that I had series 1 to 5 of Crown Court on my shelf. It's the fact that I found out there was a series 6 and a series 7 that I knew nothing about. It's like, oh, I thought I had them all. There we go. Never mind.
moving on to other topics, we have talked a little bit about music and things when we've been talking offline. And what music would you say is your favourites? I know you mentioned liking kind of music from different eras as well.
Yeah, I love 80s pop a lot, 80s Eurodance, rock, pretty much every 80s music, but like my main music genre I'm into current music is gothic metal or symphonic metal.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. What sort of bands fall under that the symphonic metal? And in case I've not heard of it, I did have a partner who was very into probably some of that sort of genre, but more in the noughties. So I'm sure things have moved on. So what sort of bands fall under that?
Within Temptation, maybe you heard. Yeah.
Yes,
Nightwish, Evanescence, Lacuna Coil from Italy. And Lacuna Coil was like my first big symphonic gothic metal band I hook up. And it's a funny story because I was playing The Sims. I think it was the third part of The Sims. And there was out a DLC called Supernatural, where you have vampires, werewolves, etc. And they added a radio station called Darkwave. And there was some darker music, and there was one song of Lacuna Coil that was advertising the new album. And I had to Google it, and I started to listen the whole album and the whole their music immediately.
Yeah, I do recognise all those names. So they must have been around quite a long time now. I don't think I ever. I don't think I ever. I certainly watched a lot of, or my partner showed me a lot of videos and things. I don't think I ever went to a show. I may have gone to because I like female vocalists of all sorts of genres.
Yeah.
So it may be that we went to a show together, but he certainly went to a lot of shows. In Temptation, is that a female vocalist?
Yeah, Sharon then Adele.
Yeah. So well, I know more than I thought I was going to. Yeah, I liked a lot of that. I don't generally listen to a lot of what I would think of as heavy metal from when I was growing up, but I did like that the symphonic type was very different and much more melodic, and also with the female vocalists, I enjoyed those. The nearest I got to more, I guess it's more like heavy rock than heavy metal. I mentioned them earlier, but for a while I did get into Kiss, the band, but mainly the 70s and early 80s version of Kiss, because I liked all the costumes and the masks, and I thought that was very different and quite sort of there was a lot of backstory to like the different masks and how they'd evolved. And I don't listen to a lot of their songs now, but for a while I was very interested in them. It was partly because I went out with somebody who managed a record store in LA, and when I used to go over, I kind of thought, well, it makes sense to try and find out a bit more about. There are quite a few bands who did very well in America in, say, the 70s, but maybe only had one or two hits, or maybe didn't end up having hits until the 80s. Like Aerosmith became very big in the 80s and 90s, but Aerosmith had been around since the 70s, and Kiss didn't have a hit in the UK until the mid 80s. And yet they've been around for absolutely ages. And Heart, they were around since the 70s and didn't start having hits in the UK until the mid 80s. I thought I ought to find out a bit more about these bands who I'm aware of, but have had this big past, because there's bound to be some interesting songs in there. And there were. I'm a bit like that. I'm a bit of a magpie, or a band or TV show that I didn't care about at all yesterday. If something triggers me off the next day, I can be suddenly, it's my new big obsession.
Yeah.
I was around in the 80s, although I was at school, but I was really interested in the 60s and maybe a bit of the 70s in the 80s. So I wasn't paying that much attention to the 80s at the time, and I had to catch up later. Although you were living through it, so you're aware of all the bands that were doing well, and you're aware of it. But I was very into the 60s, the Beatles and and lots of 60s TV shows. I just liked the whole sort of. Some people these days, you hear them talking, and you ask them a question, and they say, "Oh, I don't know about that. I wasn't born then." Like that's some sort of excuse. I thank you. Goodbye. Thank you for your help. Like, please cover your tail. Working with celebrities. So,
yeah.
Walk out mid-interview. You don't like me talking about the 80s music? Or what is it? It's weird. I was always I was never, and I think I'm still am to some extent. I never find the year you're living in very interesting. Like 2023 is pretty boring, but I might look back at 2023 in 20 years and think, wow, what an exciting year.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't remember the 80s being particularly exciting. I mean, I can't imagine that. Like when you look at stuff, you hear about people talking about the 60s, it sounds very exciting, but it probably was if you were of a certain demographic or had a certain amount of money or were living in London. My parents were in their 20s in the 60s, and they were just being very grown up and boring. And I don't think they would have been part of the 60s. They weren't cool. They weren't hippies. My dad was a businessman and my mum was a librarian, and they were just very middle-aged young people. So everyone has different, sometimes it depends where you are at the time or what sort of person you are. But I got very interested into the 80s later. But which 80s bands are you particularly interested in? Or do you just like the whole era?
I love the whole era, but if I have to choose someone, it's gonna be Eurythmics.
Oh, yeah, cool.
Eurythmics, yeah. Roxette, Sissy Catch.
Yeah. Yeah, I love the Eurythmics. I was even buying vinyl when it was still technically, it wasn't the most popular format, but it was one of the formats back in the late 80s. The thing is, I had a job, but it was just delivering the newspapers, and that was my pocket money, and I had to, the Doctor Who videos were starting to come out, and a lot of those I'd never seen before because they didn't repeat them on the TV. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to, does my money go to that? Does it go to music? Does it go to, and then I started liking modern music by the late 80s. I like the Pet Shop Boys, and I got into the Pet Shop Boys in the late 80s, and then other bands like Erasure and the Eurythmics, because they were still around. And then when Annie Lennox did her first solo album, I was at university, and I bought all of those singles. And I went through a stage of buying like singles, and I've still got a lot of those. And then in the mid-2010s, I decided to buy buy a record player again, because I didn't actually own one, but I still had the records. And I started buying old records and some new records. And then in lockdown, I went a bit crazy, and I bought lots of vinyl, which I still haven't listened to yet. And including every single Eurythmics album was one of my choices to have on. I mean, I've still got the streaming versions. I've still got my CDs. You probably can't see because so I've got the background on. But I still have all my CDs. I didn't get rid of my CDs. I still have my DVDs and my Blu-rays. I mean, partly with video, there are certain shows you just can't get on streaming anyway. So, but yeah, Eurythmics I love. Roxette I was very into around the time of Joyride, and then when I was at university, bands like Blur and Oasis and the Britpop bands were very big, and I started going to shows, and I sort of forgot about Roxette for a bit, but then now and again I'd hear a song of theirs I liked, and then when Marie died, I kind of went back and listened, and I suddenly found, oh wow, there's lots of really good, really good songs on the albums that I hadn't heard. And then there's that last year, the PG Roxette. That was a really good album where he uses different female vocalists, but it still sounds like how Roxette would sound in 2022 or whatever. And it's amazing he can still write so many good songs so far into his career. I probably like Roxette even more than I like the Eurythmics at this current time, because they are still sort of going in a slightly different form, whereas the Eurythmics aren't. But I like Duran Duran as well. Partly because of in the 80s, they're changing fashions and they're changing styles, and they're another band who continue to make really good music even now, and they seem to be very keen on still being pop stars and making an effort with doing new. They don't want to be a nostalgia act. They still want to do new stuff, and they do work with current people, and they sound. Some bands who kind of come back, it's a bit half-hearted, and it's for a tour. And Duran Duran have never actually.
Now I'm curious. Fate No More was from 80s or 70s?
I think from 80s, Faith No More, and then they were started to be quite big over here in the 90s, early 90s. Yeah, one of my flatmates was a big fan of them. But yeah, I mean, Duran Duran have never gone away. They've, again, sometimes perhaps the man on the street wouldn't necessarily know that they'd still kept going, but their fans certainly do. And because they were quite an international band, even though they started out in Birmingham in the UK, which is where I went to university. So, yeah, I still keep my eye on them. But there's so much 80s music out there, and there's lots of stuff that wasn't that well known that you can. I still find the odd song. I'm one of those people. I like new music from 2023, but I also like, because anything to me is new if you don't know it. So it could be an album from 1967 that you've never heard, and you hear it and it's amazing. It's not a new album, but it's new to you, so it's as important or as a album that was released yesterday. So there's so much you can. I don't really understand when people stop being interested in music. I have friends who haven't listened to music since they were like in their early 20s. They kind of, something in their brain kind of went, like, I used to love music, but now I don't love music now, and I'm not going to try to find any new music. And I really can't understand that. I remember my dad saying to me, why do you need any more CDs? Because music keeps being released.
Yeah.
What can you do? I can't, you know.
It's kind of magic of the internet, because in old days we were forced to like things we heard in radio or watched in TV, and now we can discover all the eras of the music, of the videos, of the TV series. You can watch old Doctor Who, existing Doctor Who. I know 50s doesn't exist anymore, or other soap operas, and now we have a whole spectrum of things. We can find things we gonna like. We don't have to like things we seen in TV or radio, like when we were kids.
Yeah. The only trouble about that is almost there's so much out there, it becomes a bit overwhelming.
Double-edged sword.
Yes, yeah. I do find that even with the bands I like say Duran Duran released a new album. I think it was their 40th anniversary. It would have been in 2021, but I think the singles were coming out into 2022 from the album. But there were so many good tracks that they released as videos that I feel like I've heard half the album, and I added them into my 2022 playlist. But I've not actually sat down and listened to the whole album. And there's a few bands that I really like, and I haven't given them the time to, because there's something else coming out, and then there's something else coming out, and because I don't commute to work anymore. When I'm at home, I'm kind of either watching TV or I'm editing. I don't give myself so much time to listen to podcasts or music as I used to when I was out every day and had a long commute. It's just trying to find. I mean, the balance of that is that I now read more. Like, I used to read a lot as a kid, and then for years I read quite a bit, and then it got less and less. And that now I'm reading like 40 books a year, which is I guess quite a lot. It feels manageable, but I think I do spend a lot of my mornings reading, which is nice. But then what's dropped off is that I don't listen to music anymore. So everything sort of moves backwards and forwards.
Here, we can take this beyond just the actual word.
Yeti beyond. Is that the words?
Well, the word is broccoli, as to whether you like broccoli or don't like broccoli. But if you do, I like broccoli, but we can broaden it beyond. But is foods that you love and hate, and is there anything like that?
It's interesting, actually. Because I'm a fan of broccoli. I'm a fan of the vegetable. I'm a fan of cooking, and I sometimes get disappointed by people who say, "Oh, I don't like this, I don't like that," and actually, because to be fair, I was quite a fussy eater when I was a kid. I didn't eat pizza for years. Me and my mates would go, after the pub. We'd go to an eatery and people would order pizza and I'd look at it and go, and then have pie and chips or a burger or something. And for years, I just thought, I don't like pizza. And then I was at a party once and, the buffet thing. And there were these squares of something with cheese on. And I was sort of going, well, these are nice. What are these? And people said, they're just pizza squares. And I'm like, ooh. And I think what irritates me is not necessarily, you can, let's face it, you can not like broccoli. That's fine. You have the taste, and people can say, I don't like coffee, or people say, I don't, whatever they don't like. They're entitled to not like something. I mean, there are allergies. There are lots of reasons. But I think the thing that gets me is the folk who won't even try it. I think that's where my grumpiness comes on, because, actually, something like asparagus is good. People who go, mushrooms, I never used to eat mushrooms. My mum, when I was a kid, used to have mushrooms on toast and I would pull a face, and slowly but surely, mushrooms on toast has become one of those delights. It's a really nice meal. However, if I was there, I think there's some, what it is I think people sometimes now put their line in the sand. I don't like that, full stop, forever. Whereas actually, I think over time you can develop taste for things. I mean, I went through a phase of drinking Guinness. Now the idea of Guinness doesn't fill me with joy. But for a time, I'd never drunk it. Then I drank it for a while, and then basically I found things I prefer to have. And so and now the idea of sitting there and having a pint of, 3 or 4 pints of Guinness, I actually think I'd rather have something else. But that doesn't mean I would, at least I went through that phase of having it. But certainly with veg, what surprises me, and it genuinely does surprise me, this is the number of people I've worked with who are about maybe 10, 15 years younger than me, who would go to the canteen or the local sandwich shop or whatever, buy a ham salad sandwich and then take all the salad off. And I think, well, don't they just do plain ham sandwiches? But it's the fact that people were just going, salad, and literally removing it. And again, I don't think this was allergy reasons. I think this was just, they decided a long time ago that they don't like salad. And that weirds me out a bit.
I was the weird kid in my family who, I mean, I remember not liking potatoes back when, in the 70s, when they were a bit stringy. But other than that, I got to a stage. My dad was fussier than my mum and I. He doesn't like a lot of green veg. He doesn't like cabbage. He doesn't like. Whereas my mum used to, because they've got an allotment. My mum would grow like purple sprouting and broccoli and all those sorts of. I quite like a vegetable that's got a bit of that doesn't descend into mushiness.
Yeah.
That has a bit of
an al dente. Yes.
Yeah, you can. I mean, with broccoli, you can have it at different squishy levels of squishiness, but. Yeah, I like something a bit more, but my dad was the one who's more fussy than I was. But
well, I think that's interesting because to a certain extent that's generational. I mean, my partner's parents won't have anything spicy at all, and yet you think, oh, there's so many great foods that they're missing out on. Really, you feel they're missing out somehow, but they've just, they've never eaten like that. They never will. And I don't know. I think my taste, if you like, my food tastes improved the more cooking I did. And the more I started cooking, the more I actually enjoy. I used to find new flavors to try, and sometimes, use accidental things. I mean, I never really thought I liked beetroot, and then I started making borscht, and I love it. And in the same way, I've one of the wonderful ingredients, which is something I never used to touch, is chorizo or however you want. I can. There are just new things I've discovered. I mean, I genuinely, I never liked eggs as a kid. Never liked eggs. And when I go to America and you go to a diner and order breakfast, and you say, "Oh, but no eggs," they look at you like, "How can you not have eggs?" And sometimes even now when I have a full, well, they call it full English, but full Welsh, full Scottish, whatever, the full cooked breakfast that they do in various B&Bs and what have you. And sometimes I'm not in the mood for eggs in the morning. But actually, I never used to like omelette, and yet I've now started making omelettes and and love them. So I think you have to be open to change. And I think that's, the I don't like, I mean, like I say, food allergies aside, the I don't like aspect of food is, I mean, didn't they used to say that if you eat something 20 times, you get used to it. And that's kind of one of the ways. But I mean, obviously, if you just go, you put the fork in your mouth and go, I watched that scene in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom with the eyeballs, and I couldn't. I think if my food's staring back at me, I'd have trouble with it. And I'm not a big fan of unprepared fish. I'm not, if you see what I mean. I'm not particularly fond of my food staring back at me. So I can get that, but equally the fish itself. I never used to be a fan of fish, and then I went to a brilliant fish restaurant and thought, what am I going to eat? And I had one of the most wonderful meals of my life. And I thought, oh, this fish thing, there's something in it. And once you sort of open the door a bit and investigate, I think you can find that there are actual flavors and tastes that are worth it.
I was a bit like you with beetroot, but I have found ways around with beetroot which are better. Radishes, it wasn't so much that they were, it was more their blandness that but you can find things to do with
a combination. I think that's the thing. I mean, I've discovered, for example, that a beetroot salad that includes goat's cheese and walnuts is a wonderful, they go so well together. Like I say, the borscht thing is a different thing. But when we used to have hot pots as a kid, we always used to have pickled beetroot and pickled red cabbage with it, and things like that. So it's kind of finding things that complement each other. And sometimes, if you present, once upon a time, long time ago, I went to Barcelona on my holidays, to visit a friend actually, and I got there quite late in the evening, and for some reason Barcelona was one of those cities where people went out to eat at 10 o'clock at night. And I ended up in this restaurant, and basically all I really fancied, because I'd just flown in, was I just wanted a green salad. But my Spanish was rubbish. It still is. But my Spanish was rubbish then. And I ordered what I thought was a green salad. And I got a dinner plate, a big dinner plate. And it was piled high to the point like a cone with green peas. It was just a massive plate of green peas. Now, fair enough, I ordered it. I ate it. I ate about half of it. But it took me a very long time before I could face peas again.
Were they still in their pods, or were they out? Were they
no, just green.
Just peas.
Just processed peas. It was the most bizarre thing. I also went to a French restaurant in Paris once, and for some reason it was an onion soup, but they had so much salt in it that was virtually inedible. That put me off that for a long time. But then you realise that's just a bad chef. It's not. Onion.
One time I had frog's legs in Paris. It was there was just too much garlic. It was fine, but it was a bit underwhelming because it was more like very small chicken legs.
Well, I think you always can remember a bad meal, and you can always remember a really bad flavour. But I think sometimes you have to just allow for the fact that it's just not been well cooked. And actually, a bad onion soup shouldn't put you off onion soup for life. It should make you off that restaurant. See what I mean?
I was also going to ask you about other things like shorter subjects. Like I think you mentioned that when it comes to like animals, are you more of a dog person than a cat person?
Yeah, definitely dog person. I can stand cats, but I'm not a big fan of cats. My ex-roommates had 2, and those cats hated me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you can have a bad experience. I mean, I had some bad experiences with dogs when I was a paperboy, and it wasn't the dog's fault. It was their owners either not keeping an eye on them. And I lived in a village, so they were more running free a bit more.
Yeah.
But then there were also kids who maybe, I remember one family who had Jack Russell dogs, and they would kind of go chase, and then they kind of chase you when you were trying to deliver newspapers. It can be but I've had good experiences with dogs as well. So, but did you grow up with dogs, or did you or have you owned a dog? Or
I never had a dog. My grandma had a dog since I was in 4th grade, but I was spending a lot of time in my friend's house, and she had 2 Labradors. No, sorry, golden retrievers.
No.
So there was always some dogs around.
Yeah. And things like food, for instance. What's your favorite? If I was going to take you for a meal, what sort of food would you like to eat?
Hard question. I eat a lot of fast food, but I love a lot of pasta. And my favorite type of pasta is Chinese pasta with chicken and vegetables.
Yeah, I had something like that for it was only it was only a microwave dish, and so not as good as if you were having it at a restaurant. But yeah, you can still get that little taste, and it's like, yeah, well, it's not as good as the real thing, but it's still. Although there wasn't much chicken when I had for lunch today. There was about 3 bits of chicken in the whole thing, but okay.
I was lately disappointed because last time I ordered my chicken pasta, there was more chicken than pasta, and I was disappointed because I love pasta.
Yeah. Oh, that's unusual. Usually it's the other way around.
Yeah.
They hide it underneath. They hide the lack of chicken underneath all the vegetables and stuff. But what about desserts or cakes, or if you were having something sweet, what would you choose?
I never taken a dessert, so it's a hard question for me. But any cake with chocolate is gonna be great, or ice creams.
Yeah, I like ice creams. When I've been to Italy, I like a lot of people. I find in the shops. I mean, I don't go to the supermarkets as much because we tend to get food delivered because it's just easier. I don't drive, and some of the stuff that Geely needs, his literature and that sort of thing, are really heavy. You'd need to go just to get those. So it's just easier to have them delivered.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily see, and also perhaps you don't get tempted so much by things you didn't actually need. So it works out.
It's convenient. It's convenient.
Yeah. But I like fruit ice creams, like say with Ben and Jerry's, they used to be like strawberry cheesecake or Cherry Garcia, and I like those ones, and yet you don't see them anymore. I don't know whether it seems to be like there's a general consensus that people only like chocolate things or toffee things, and really, chocolate ice cream. Yeah, I don't mind those, but I want fruit. I like fruit, different flavors, and when I've been, when I've been to Italy, you've just got so much variety here, and I go a little bit sort of, I'll have 2 scoops of that, and then maybe come back. That's at breakfast time. Then go back at lunchtime. But there's just so many flavors. I've got to try them all. But,
there are 4 flavors I need to live, and I can live without others.
Yeah.
It's a mango sorbet. It's a strawberry sorbet. Any citron lemon flavor, and the best ice creams are the mint with chocolate chips. I love mint chocolate and mint ice creams.
Yeah. I do like that, but I don't know if I was going to pick one. I'm kind of fascinated by cherry, I suppose, to a certain extent, because there's not one version of you can have cherry ice cream in 20 different countries, and then they'll be slightly different. They would have got a slightly different variation on the cherry, or there doesn't seem to be a consensus of what cherry tastes like. And I mean, if it's got nice bits of cherry, and even better. But I just feel that like someone somewhere is make a bit like, and it's a very strange connection, but in the same way as people have said to me, "Oh, why do you need to keep Blu-rays or DVDs? Everything's available for streaming." And it's like, everything isn't available for streaming. Everything's available for streaming if you like Marvel movies or the most famous TV program or whatever that is at the moment. But if you like something from years ago, then maybe it's not available for streaming. And I feel like the same thing's happening with ice cream, where they're kind of going, "Oh, we don't need to worry about that flavor anymore." People are just like this type, and there's less. It's weird. There's less choice in everything than there used to be, because people are making decisions, think, "Oh, well, people don't need that. People just like that." And are you somebody who has physical media a lot, or do you rely on streaming? Do you have DVDs still, or CDs, or do you stream everything?
I have few CDs, but I only started them buying when I was in college. Before I didn't have any CDs, so now I have maybe 10. Few Within Temptation, few Lacuna Coils, few of Lindsay Sterling. Not sure if you know her, and 2 CDs of Benjamin Cole.
Yeah, I mean, it because it was the only format when I've still got the trouble. Again, I can see how you can't see it, but there's a pile which is sort of from there up to the ceiling of CDs that I haven't played, but I don't know where I would get a lot of them if I got rid of them, because they're not available. Particularly, a lot of bands used to do B-sides and extra tracks, and they're not necessarily available on an album or that easy to. Perhaps ones that were released in the last 10 years are available on Spotify or whatever, but older bands that it's sort of until I sort of. I used to have all of those sorts of things scanned when I had an iPod when they were new. That was about the only time I've ever been up with technology is when iPods came along. I was like, wow, this is perfect for me. I've got so much. I like so much music, and I scanned a lot of my CDs onto my iPod. But somewhere along the way, with computers, your laptop breaks or something, and I didn't have the right backup or something. I've lost a lot of. I've still got the physical ones, but I lost a lot of the digital stuff I scanned onto my iPod. It's a bit worrying because there are some shows that I watch now that I would love to own. I would like, places like Disney Plus or Netflix. To me, they should just be the place where you go. Yeah, that's the first place you see. Like for instance, the first time you see an episode of Doctor Who, it's going to be on the BBC or on whatever channel it's on. But then I can, in a 2 or 3 months' time, I can go and buy it and own my own copy. So the BBC, to me, or whatever channel, is like a preview, or this is the debut, this is the premiere. But it shouldn't be the only format you can, and it never was for so many years. And now they're sort of going, Netflix. Oh, that's the only place you can see it. It feels like they're taking away the options to see it in different formats because they want to control it. It feels very controlling to me, and I don't like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of TV series or animes I would like have on DVDs, but they extremely expensive in Poland. So
it makes me sad because if I like something, I might want to take it round to a friend's house, or I might want to take it over to my parents, or somewhere which doesn't have. My parents don't stream things. It's just sort of. I think there'll probably be a turnaround like there was with vinyl, where eventually. I mean, it just seems really weird. I mean, something like Stranger Things, that could make so much extra money. I would have thought by being available to buy. I mean, Game of Thrones was available to buy on physical media. And I imagine that must have sold well. It just seems like Stranger Things is a sort of show that would. There seems when you look on Amazon, if you were a fan of Stranger Things and you wanted some merchandise, there's like a baseball cap or hoodie, or there's a big gap where there's no merchandise with the actual TV show. Mm-hmm. It just feels really weird, and I think there are going to be certain shows where if they try and stop releasing them physically, people aren't going to put up with it. Like Doctor Who fans aren't going to be put up with being told, well, from this season you won't be able to own it because you've got 60 years of people collecting Doctor Who and owning it, and they're not going to put up with whatever channel saying, sorry, no more.
That's the difference, because, Netflix is exclusively streaming. HBO still have their channels on TV, so if it was released in TV, they can put it on DVDs. But Netflix started as a blockbuster, so they was a renting company, and now they resigned from DVDs as a whole medium. So they're releasing only things exclusively in internet. There is no channel on TV, so they have no need to bring DVDs.
I still think it would make them more money. I still think they must realise that people want to own things. Although I guess with music, that there are lots of people who just like music and it's just something in the background and they like it, but they wouldn't ever think about going to see a band, maybe, or they don't have the same connection. Whereas other people, a band can be their life and they're completely obsessed with music. It's weird. It's a weird time.
I just hate the silence. I have to have some noise. So my place, there's always some music or TV series in the background.
Yeah. We're gonna have to go soon, but it would be good to have you back on the show again at some other point. But I'm sure there's other things we can talk about. Before we go though, I was going to ask you about sort of travel or about Poland. Have you traveled outside of Poland much, or traveled much in Poland? Or
I'm not a traveler type. I'm a terrible tourist. But I was once in Dublin.
Oh yeah,
pretty lovely city, and I must move there. I have one-way ticket at the beginning of 2020. Luckily, I didn't then because it was I dodged the bullet. And I was in Prague once. It's a very lovely city. If I would have more money, probably I would travel and looking for my own place on the world. But well, 70% of my salary going to the rent of the flat, so it's not easy to save anything. And if I want to move in next 3 years, I have to cut my expenses. So
yeah. I've been to Prague and Dublin. I enjoy both cities. Actually, I have a weird connection with when I went to Prague in about 2006 or 7. Roxette, going back to Roxette, must have had a new greatest hits out, and in 2006, say in the UK, no one would have been playing Roxette that much, other than fans. But we were walking around every cafe you went into in Prague. You could tell that Roxette was still massive because there was so much. It made me sort of one of those things where you perhaps not listen to a band for ages, and then you hear it played quite a lot, and when you go home, you're like, I must listen to more of them. But yeah, that's really weird that. When I think of Prague, I think of Roxette, but that's just because they were very popular around the time that I was over there, and they were getting played everywhere. But I've only been to Poland once, Krakow. That's yeah.
I don't know the city.
No.
I was there twice, but yeah, Wrocław is better.
Yeah. I used to travel a lot. Haven't been able to so much recently, but I did like it a lot. I used to go away a lot in November because that's when my birthday is, as you know.
Mine too.
Yeah, we're both Scorpios, aren't we? We've had conversations about.
Scorpio bingo.
Yeah, yeah. Listeners, it's funny because as much as I don't believe in star signs, there are some things that are undeniable, and I know that they are coincidences. But yeah, we have Scorpio bingo where we're kind of like, and when we were first talking, I don't think you'd seen my date of birth, or you hadn't seen my month of birth.
No,
but you said,
I just asked which November you were born.
Yeah, you said, where are you a Scorpio? And I said yes. And you said, I knew it. I have a friend who's been on the show, who I'm pretty much friends. Well, I started being friends with because we discovered we were born exactly the same day and the same year, and he's about 2 hours older than me. And then we discovered we liked certain shows the same, and then it got to the stage where he was on a podcast, and I was like, "Hey, you got to be on my podcast." So then we got to know each other because we were actually talking, and then I was starting to be interested. Well, what else do we have in common? And then so we talked about, so like we have today, about what music you like. And there were well, I mean, it could be a coincidence, but we get on really well, and I do seem to get on pretty well with Scorpios. I can think of other friends I've got who are Scorpios, and I do get on extremely well with them. So
yeah,
although people say that star signs are, but there's something going on there.
Yeah, space mystery.
Yeah, that can't be explained. I don't think I've ever met a Scorpio who I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't stand that guy. Why is he like that? The people I can think of that are Scorpios, I've been like, wow, that guy was so cool to talk to, or we had so much in common, or so I don't know. That seems like a good place to finish anyway. So thank you very much for talking to me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and we'll talk again. And it's good luck with your channel. Tell us the name of your channel again before we.
It's a Nerd Cave. The English one and Polish one is Grota Nerda.
Yeah, and we'll try and put a link in the show notes as well for that.
Thank you.
But, okie dokie. Well, we'll speak again soon. Right.
Sure.
Bye bye for now.
Bye bye.
Well, listeners, I hope you enjoyed that episode. And thanks to both my guests. And hopefully there wasn't too much grumbling. But I think we made some good points, and I think we had some good chats as well. Right, well, we've got plenty of episodes in the can, but anyway, we do have to go now. We've got plenty of episodes in the can, so we'll be back soon. You take care, and yes, thanks again to my guests, and goodbye for now. Bye-bye. Bettina, I'm okay. Sorry, it's just a bit late. I was about to turn my phone off.
Oh, I'm so sorry, darling. I was just listening to your most recent episode with that lovely young gentleman from Poland.
Oh, Darth Grizzly?
Oh, I think that's what he's called, yes. Oh, just wanted to say I was looking at his YouTube channel, darling, and what a smart young gentleman. I particularly like the bow ties. I showed August, and he said whenever he's in the UK, he would love to paint him, apparently. And I'd love to meet him too.
Well, I'll pass on your message. He'll be very pleased. I know he's quite a fan of you, Bettina.
Oh, yes, well, that's lovely to hear. Actually, he may not know. I don't think I was credited, but I did have a cameo in an early episode of one of the shows he was talking about. I'll have to tell him all about it.
Oh, he'll love that. Yeah, definitely.
Well, anyway, that's what I wanted to say. Pass on my best wishes, won't you, darling?
I will.
I won't keep you up.
All right, nice to hear from you. So thanks for letting me know.
No problem at all, darling. 1 million kisses. 1,000,001 kisses. Mwah.
Good night.
Good night, darling.
I gotta go now. Bye. Gotta go. Bye.
Goodbye.
It's been good, but yeah, definitely time to come home now.
Wow. Real? No kidding.
Goodbye. Yes, goodbye.
This show is part of the Pride 48 network. Find more shows over at pride48.com.
Oh dear, what's going on now? Oh, it's the Shy Life Podcast.
Let's go.
I have a voice. I have a voice.
You have a voice.
You have a voice. We have a voice.
We have a voice.
Unique voices in podcasting.
UnivazPods.net.
That is so cringe, oh my god.
You're a man of culture as well.
Who are you talking to, Paul? Oh, Yeti Uncle John, I didn't know you were here. Oh, you thought I'd be out in the magpie hut, did you? Well, it's too hot in there. I never thought I'd say that about September, but it's been blooming hot. I can't sleep in the magpie hut with all them magpies, so I'm keeping on your sofa. Well, that's fine. Who are you talking to? One of your podcasting friends? Oh, actually, it was Bettina. She's just heard the recent episode. Apparently, she's been watching his YouTube channel and liked his fashion sense, and as did August. No, it's very nice. Oh, well, I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, she'll have comments about my fashion sense. Oh, Yeti Uncle John, I think it's because she's so overwhelmed, by just how awesome it is. Awesome, did you say? Or awful? I would never say that about you, Yeti Uncle John. Anyway, I don't want to speak too loud because I don't want to wake up Toby. Oh, yes, of course, I forgot. Sorry, Paul, it's late, isn't it? It is late. It's pretty late, yeah. Anyway, I've got to remember to let Darth Grizzly know. Is that his real name? Well, of course it's not his real name. He said I could call him Matthew if I can't pronounce his name right, but his middle name's Victor, and I think he prefers that, so I don't know. He's got lots of names. A bit like you, Paul. A bit like me. I think he's got more names than I have. Oh dear, Paul, you better think of another one. It's not a competition. Ah, but is it? I don't know. I'm not sure. I'll have to have a word with him. We're both Scorpios, you see. We talk about Scorpio things. Do you now? Oh, well, I'm not a Scorpio. I'm sorry. I won't be able to join your conversation. Good night, Yeti Uncle John. Good night, Paul. Yeah, I like the show too, by the way. Thanks, Yeti Uncle John. Thank you. Good night. Don't sit on Dealey. As if I would. Oh, I don't know. Dealey might sit on him. Oh well. But that's quite the pleasure. Good night, listeners. Good night.
Oh my God, there's nothing I like better is when another new episode of the Shy Life podcast comes out.
Gee whiz, the way Paul Chandler the Shy Yeti travels around gives me a rash.
He's not all that shy, is right. Sheesh. 668. This is just the weirdest thing I've ever heard.
Well, howdy, folks. Dust off them calendars, because September 15th through the 17th, y'all gotta be at Pride48.com. We're saddling up for our grand finale. Join us and explore the rich tapestry of our community with a heap of eclectic LGBTQ and LGBTQ-friendly podcasts from the full Pride 48 stable. This here's your last chance to be part of this hootenanny. Looking for more info? Well, just mosey on over to the Pride 48 website for all the juicy details. Don't forget now, September 15th to the 17th. Only at Pride48.com.
Et voilà.